Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another fun and yet very cold Friday night. Um, a return edition of sorts of the 13th Dimension. And tonight with me are my very good friend, John Griffin, who is still muted, along with a friend of his who I just met like 20 seconds ago, Jacqueline Lewin. Welcome, guys.
Good to be back.
How are you?
Doing pretty good. How you doing?
Good. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, glad to have you guys on here. Um,
Been
we
way too
tried
long.
this, huh?
Been way too long, Jeremy.
I
It's
know.
unacceptable.
We tried to do this a month ago, and it happens. I'm going to try to get this thing shared out. I can only share out one group at a time now, and that is very annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, Facebook likes to think that they're improving everything all the time, but really they're just screwing things up. They don't know how to leave things the way they need to be.
I at least noticed one new thing on Facebook where where all the reactions. It's someone's reaction plus a number now. It's kind of like why? Is there
Like
really any
grading it?
of this? Huh?
Like it's being graded?
No. Like if like 35 people like a post or something like that,
Oh,
and
gotcha.
then plus 34. Like eh, how much coding went into, I mean, probably not a lot, but how much, I mean, I think about how much coding went into just making that short adjustment.
Well, they probably spent a lot of money doing that. Just when you make millions and millions and billions and trillions of dollars, you got to figure out something to do with it.
I mean, they could always contribute to me.
I'm with you. I gotcha.
We'll split it. We'll split it like 33.33333% between all of us.
Exactly. Pays for a lot of investigations.
I really hate that splitting number, that whole 1/3 number. Like, there has to be someone with 34%. I'm just saying. I love the back scratcher, Jeremy.
This has been quite the topic over the last few days.
I
Um,
have the same one.
last night I had Kate Crosby on the show. She is part of the Things of Illinois team, and she's originally from England. She did not know these things existed.
I keep on forgetting they exist.
I don't know how you could because you need them.
I
Probably.
have one. It was in here the other day.
I've
I
got
think the
one
Dawn took it.
I've got one of these in every room in the house. They come in quite handy. Okay, so
We've
we
crossed.
are here to talk about this new show of yours that well, when we tried to do this was yet to come out, and now it is out.
Hmm.
Well, tell us about that, John.
So it's actually a reboot. So we did create a pilot episode of a series called The Path to Communication. We did one episode, and when we got a feedback from it, because it was dedicated towards my brother Jeremy and our team member, other team member Katie Peak's brother Anson, and it was like two friends who both lost brothers in a tragic, under tragic circumstances, and they were reaching out essentially from the beyond. And Jeremy, especially, has been my brother Jeremy had been trying to essentially guide us to how to better communicate. So we wanted to create a different series where there was more emotion to it, where the focus was a story, but um, trying to keep to a specific format, a format that people are very familiar with. And um, when we released the pilot episode, it was received very well. the one thing that caught the attention of Katie and I was the things that people were most engaged, which was the story, um, which was towards the beginning. It was more 5 minutes, um, and it's what led people to being connected to the story of myself and my brother, as well as Katie and Anson. And then they loved the experiments, and they really wanted to know more about them. They wanted to know in depth about how things are set up, how it came to be, how they just wanted to know more about the story. And I noticed that because, of course, as you know, Jeremy, um, uh, Wildwood Sanitarium is near and dear to my heart. So
Mhm.
that was where our first episode was going to be. Uh, and nobody was talking about the location. I mean, a lot of people, they know Wildwood Sanitarium already. Um, hello, and what you call it? And Wildwood Sanitarium was going to play a huge role in the Path to Communication series, but we were going to have one location per episode, and in some cases, Wildwood Sanitarium would make an appearance uh, because of our rapport with the spirits there, and that's also where my brother he interacts with the spirits there. It's spirit to spirit interaction, very interesting, and they've been helping to guide us on experiments even at other locations. Once we got the feedback that story and experiments were playing a huge role in people's interest in it, we decided to do a reboot. Um, and we got further feedback saying that, uh, it, it felt like we had one producer who's in the film industry that said that the episode did feel like it was a marketing, or it was marketing for Wildwood Sanitarium. And it started off with the story. It was great. And then it just kind of went into, okay, we did a bunch of experiments at this place. And it got me to take a step back, really reevaluate it. And that's where we were like, you know what? Everybody seemed to love the stories and they love the experiments. That needs to be the focus, and the locations need to take a step back and be essentially important. Wildwood Sanitarium remains important, but we need to have a reason as to why we're returning to Wildwood Sanitarium, and that that each episode can't be bound by location. That's the big thing. So it's bound by story, bound by the experiments, um, and the locations, again, they play a huge role, but it's more of the story. Um, so people with the reboot, now that we've released a couple of the chapters, that's what we're referring to the episodes as. They're referred to as chapters because essentially the story is unfolding, and the best part about this is it's not predetermined. Um, we have chapter 3 in post production right now, but the audience is also going to be able to help out with this, with comments, whether it's appearing on the show itself. Um, it, it's Since it's bound by story, the story currently of the path to communication is untold. We don't know what's coming. So what we wanted to do was also get the audience involved, because it's on YouTube. You comment, people can message me on Facebook and go, "Hey, I have a suggestion," or "Here are my uh, here's some ideas for things that you could try based off what we saw." And now we start taking that story. It's the you never know where the story is going to go, and we also want to give credit to the people who are submitting this stuff as well. So it's going to be so far it's been very different. It's just getting started. What we've been doing the last two chapters is introducing um, some of the people involved, as well as the spirit guides. They're playing a huge role. So Jeremy, my brother, has been introduced. The story's been introduced to that, and a new spirit guide who's come into the picture this earlier this year, who's been helping out by the name of Richard. Um, and yeah, there's so much to talk about with it, the future of it, and that's also kind of how there's the connection with uh, with my friend Jacqueline, um, which I'm not going to go into the full thing. We just released chapter 2, which involves Jacqueline. The end of chapter 1 introduced the story, or the beginning parts of the story, but let's just say there was one of my friends from that I met at Wildwood, Alyssa Martin. She said, when I told the story to her, and there's still details that we just found out that they don't even know. The one thing what she said was, because she's been involved with a lot of the Path to Communication events, she said, "Is this real life?" And I started using that because, as Jacqueline could tell you, we're still trying to comprehend what happened recently.
Yeah, absolutely mind blowing.
Every time I hear "Is this real life?" I keep thinking of the Queen song. Um, for those of you out there in the audience, I just posted a link to the Path to Communication page on YouTube, so definitely go and check that out. He's got a bunch of videos on there, um, some pretty good videos, and some pretty good music on there, if I say so much. Well, wait a minute. Do you have the first two on there?
Not yet. I'm
Oh,
going to be slowly bringing them in. I'm trying to find ways to implement it because I know those were past projects that were coming, but definitely they're going to make their way in. I can promise you that.
yeah, because I am so incredibly proud of those two. I would definitely like to see. Oh, you just got yourself a new subscriber.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I'm definitely very proud of those songs, and I would love to see them being used in some fashion.
oh, they are. I mean, here's the kicker to this. We still got chapter 3 coming. Chapter 3, um, because now we're bringing in Wildwood Sanitarium fully into it. For those who haven't seen chapter 1, chapter 2, I don't want to spoil too much for those who haven't seen it, but chapter 3 brings in two, especially more specifically, two spirits of Wildwood Sanitarium, Dr. Henderson and Nurse Sue, who have been helping with guiding. And then it's going to show the combination of Jeremy, Spirit Guide Richard, and there'll be a reason why I refer to him as Spirit Guide Richard throughout this, um, because especially when it comes down to the Jacqueline's story, it might get a little confusing, um, and their
That's for sure.
interactions. So it's just it's truly incredible. Truly incredible what's coming, and the reason I wanted to introduce them first is because I want people, because once we get into the real investigation, the nitty gritty, the experiments, and all that type of stuff, um, they're going to see, because the since, especially, it's been a couple of years since we've done things together, Jeremy. Our research tactics have evolved in many different ways, and a lot of it has been to do with what's been happening, with the results that we've been finding. The results have been nothing short of astonishing, and after this year, especially since April up until now, um, and I would say even more so August, because August things just ramped up until now, where it came to the point where it ended up with like Jacqueline's story, where I'm just sitting back and going, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? Um, so people are going to see very unique things, and I wanted to explain it more in depth. Not saying that we won't go back and explain some things as we go along, but I don't want to spend each of the chapters explaining things over and over and over again. I want to kind of just, here's a small quick explanation of, what we're doing this, or why we're doing this, but you can have this more in-depth explanation earlier on, because um, this is a progressive story. So it's not like with like a lot of the paranormal shows where it's like one location, we go there, There's the investigation. Here's what we found. Here's the evidence. Okay, next location. We completely forgot about this location.
Right.
Next episode, we forgot about these other two locations because the location becomes front and center. This one is bound by story, which means there's a progression, and that's anybody who sees the logo, the path to communication logo. The first two words that pop up on the logo reveal is the path,
Mhm.
and so it's about a journey. It's about this journey that's going on, and where is it going to take us? There could be a fork in the road. There might be a new path that we end up creating. We don't know where the story is going to take us. So if you aren't following along, if you just jump in, like if you come in at chapter 20 or whatever down the line, uh, you may be completely lost. Um,
So definitely something where you need to start at the very beginning.
yeah, and there's going to be points of where because each of the seasons we're referring to them as volumes, so it's almost like a video book. And the volume, there will be different volumes, and each of the volumes or seasons will have its own theme. So this theme for volume one is more about believing in yourself, and it brings in the spirit guides, how they're helping us, and then it begins expanding outward. So once volume two hits, a new theme hits, and we're going to be expanding further and further and further, and who knows where it's going to go. And that's the beauty of this. This is why it's also about character development too. So we want to inspire people too. Um, they get to see how different people who interact or come into this end up growing. Um, and people are going to see the times that we succeed and the times that we struggle, the times that things don't go the way we want it to. Um, it's going to show all of it. So it's not just we're not going to just show the moments where every single time we succeed. Um, it, there's going to be points, and that's where there's going to be points where the audience will see that frustration, but it's how we navigate it, and hopefully it'll be an inspiration to others. That hey, this stuff happens. We'll work through it. And you know it's going to be amazing once everything really starts taking off. It's people will understand, but until the story really goes, um, it's something that people um, it's a very different format. It's a different form of paranormal storytelling. It's not your traditional ghost hunting show. um, so not
Yeah,
every
that stuff is getting boring these days.
well, it's a lot of rinse and repeat. And uh, that's why I struggle watching, uh, you know, all like all the shows now. I haven't watched paranormal shows in years, with the exception of a few things here and there. Um, but it's a lot of rinse and repeat. With some minor twists to them, different character or characters within the story and such. Um, but uh, it's going to be different, and I think that's people who will first see it are going to be kind of maybe taken a little back by it, because it's not traditional. um, but I just ask people give it a chance and see where it goes with it. um, it could be one of those shows for some people like myself. There's been shows where I started watching the show. I'm like, I don't know, and then all of a sudden it just takes right off, and I go, oh, okay, and then I'm binge watching the stupid or the show. I'm trying filter.
See
No Gordon Ramsay.
that actually reminds me of the Dark Tower series, the Stephen King books. The first book is hard to get through, very very hard. And then once you get into the second book, then it, like you said, it really takes off, and now you're on this journey. And then once you get to the very end of that journey, it takes you all the way back to the beginning. You got to go through the whole thing over again.
And people are going to start kind of seeing that, and that's why with chapters 1 and 2, chapter 1 is uh uh it's titled chapter one is it end or it begins with an ending.
I want to ask you about that one because I'm looking at it. I'm looking at chapter two, and it's about a half hour,
Hmm.
but chapter one is just barely 12 minutes.
Yes. So we're not going based off of time for the episodes. Um, so again, it's deviating from a format. We're going with and I'll be honest, part of the messaging came from the other side as well. So I kind of got some inspiration there, where the message is just tell the story. So there may be episodes that could be 5 minutes long. There may be episodes that are 45 minutes long. It's really depending on what the story is and how it unfolds. Um, so that one was kind of the chapter one was a really like in your face, like you know, highly emotional punch to the gut right at the beginning to say, here's where this kind of ended and started. So that's where the whole play on words is that the beginning started with an ending, and that ending being my brother. Um, and that started a very different journey. So, and then the journey just got wild, wild from there. With, I'll be on as I was editing chapter two, um, which involves Jacqueline's story. Um, that was hard to cut things out. I needed to get to the point on a lot of things, but it was hard to cut things out because there was so much that happened that there's details that are mentioned in there, but I don't bring up exactly what the parallel is. And then there's certain things that I felt that are very important to bring up the parallel. So there's going to be some uh, background information that your audience is going to hear today that's not in the episode. Not saying that it may come in the future, that we may end up talking about it in some of the episodes, but there's just some moments where it's kind of those moments where Jacqueline and I are, we sit back, we talked about it. I can't tell you how many times Jacqueline and I, and she could tell you, we were on the phone going, and this is multiple times over multiple days. Like, I still can't get over that how this happened. I can't believe that this happened. What the heck with this parallel? Is this real life? What happened?
Yeah, it took on a life of its own for sure. What was intended to be um, an invitation of me inviting him to one of my favorite home away from home, because I wanted him to work with me on a show that I also have, ended up opening a door that knocked us on our bottom. Like we didn't see it coming. Spirits obviously did. And that's why it unfolded the way it unfolded. And they led us where we needed to be. But every time we turned around, it was just like another, oh my God moment. Like, how is this possible? How did this happen?
When you tend to start doing things outside the box and getting away from the norm, it's amazing what kind of results you can come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I have a show that is called Speaking for the Silent that I'm working on, where my team and I combine our experience in law enforcement and criminal investigations with paranormal investigations to ultimately solve cold case murders. And so when I first met John, the first thing I said was, you know what, I could really use you on the show, um, for a lot of the experimental side of the technology that we want to bring into the show. So I said, hey, you know what? Why don't you come out to one of my Lake Shawnee lockdowns? I'd love to have you investigate. Ironically, everyone was supposed to go canceled, and it was just him, I, and one of my partners, which was bizarre in itself. But what ended up happening from there took it to a whole a whole nother direction of where we expected to be. So it's definitely one of those. His chapter two is gonna not only leave the viewers wanting more, but leave a lot of questions that will lead into more and take you down that path that he's ultimately looking for.
And chapter two, I mean, which just came out actually yesterday. Uh, I can already see that a bunch of people who have watched all the way through the episodes all the way through the episode based off of the stats I got. Um, so I know for a bunch of people who watched it, they were definitely glued.
Yeah.
Here, here's your show banner for that episode.
Yep,
So
and
who is the other guy that is in the picture?
That is my father.
Okay.
and so we should probably explain the confusion part, get that part out of the way, because this is why I'm going to refer to the spirit guide that I was referring to as Spirit Guide Richard as Spirit Guide Richard.
The
I'll let Jacqueline explain that part though.
funniest part about this is we went, like almost 2 weeks before I even said, wait a minute,
Yes.
how did I not even realize this? So my father's name is also Richard. So the whole time everything is unfolding, it was so chaotic and it was so intense. I never stopped to think and be like, wait a minute, we're being led by a spirit guide named Richard, and my father, who's a major part of why this all unfolded, is Richard as well, which is just one of the very many parallels that occur.
Well, that was something that John and I had to get straight right from the get go because when he was talking about his brother when they were young kids and
Yeah,
and saying that he and Jeremy would be doing something, I would have to jump in. He's talking about his brother Jeremy, not that.
right, right. That was just funny because that's the first thing I thought of when I saw it, when we logged in and stuff. I was like, again, what are the odds?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of I remember, and this is I think I brought up this story before about like with my brother and with when he took his life and how that unfolded with names, play on names again. The person that showed up that day to clean the scene where he took his life. Um, the guy introduced himself when I opened up the door. He introduced himself and goes, "Hi, I'm Jeremy," and I'm like, I jumped out because my parents were still downstairs. This was still fresh. They had just removed my brother's body. Um,
Oh my God.
I jumped out and I shut the door and I was like, whatever you do, when
Don't say
when
that.
and if you interact with my parents, please do not introduce yourself as Jeremy. That's the person's room that you are going to be cleaning. Um, and he was like, I don't know why I introduced myself. Normally, I introduce myself as Bruce. I'm like, that sounds great. I
Wait,
later told my parents.
what?
I later, yeah, don't. Bruce is his middle name. Yeah, and then I got a call from the pastor who was going to oversee the service, and he was like, you and I have something in common too. Um, your name is John and my name is John. And I'm like, and I was more of a spiritual, like religious person growing up. Um, and I was raised Lutheran Christian, and this pastor's a Lutheran Christian. So it was like John overseeing my brother's service, the spiritual service, and Jeremy cleaning Jeremy's room.
Which, when you think about it, at Shawnee that I invited you down, my other partner's name is John. So
It's
the
like,
whole night I'm like, John, and I had to call my other partner by his last name so that I didn't get the confusion going.
yeah, I answered you a few times when it was for him.
Yeah. But like, it's some of those things might seem very minor to most people, especially people that definitely don't believe in paranormal or have a very closed mind. But when you start really taking a step back and watching things that have unfolded and watch as they continue to unfold and see that these little pieces start to build this massive puzzle, you can't help the back scratcher. you can't help but to be like, there's a greater reason for all of this. And ironically, that's what I said to John the very first night that I met him was like, I don't know why I feel like I've known you for like 6 lifetimes, but there's a reason we're here right now. I don't know what it is, but there's a reason. And sure enough, weeks later, we found that reason.
And I actually do want to give a quick shout out, since I see in the comments section, um, the uh, the producer for the show, Matt from Dark Echoes. That's it
Yeah.
was actually a live event. Um,
I wasn't
uh,
sure if I was allowed to say it. That's why I didn't say anything.
That, you know what, in the comment section, so I'm throwing it out there,
Perfect.
and great to see you, Matt. Um, it was a Dark Echoes live Halloween event that Jacqueline and I officially met in person. Um, so before them, I mean, we were friends on social media, but we hadn't
Right.
met each other yet. We hadn't talked to each other yet, and it was actually Matt's event that uh, ended up bringing us together.
Yep.
And let me tell you something. Check. I mean, that live was incredible. I mean,
Amazing.
yeah. The investigation, the location, um, was amazing. Sorry.
It was a lot of fun too, though. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and you know, um, we each got the chance to do a couple different investigations. I mean, they're solo investigations, um, but it highlights the individual
Right.
tactics of each person. But
Right.
yeah, so that's where we met. That's the starting point for
Yeah.
I guess that's the starting point for our story.
For the path. the
Yeah, the
So
path.
the path to two Richards.
just less than 2 months ago, right?
Hmm. Yep, end of October.
Wow. In that short amount of time, you worked your way into making a TV episode, basically.
That's how intense and quick things unfolded, though. I mean, it was just one thing after another. The situation was a serious situation for those that, haven't seen the episode yet. It wasn't just like a basic situation that kind of brought us there. I mean, there was a very serious situation going on that ultimately not only, brought us together stronger, but also made us realize like there's a greater reason that we're here. And it's this reason and then more. Like we're not done here.
Yeah, to give the stakes on this, because this is something I've never dealt with in all my years of paranormal research. I've never
Yeah.
come across anything of this magnitude. Um, it basically, the spirit guides involved, my brother, spirit guide Richard, they helped with saving a life. That's how. This is why it's like for us, it was, is this real life? Did this really just happen? Um, because ultimately, uh, if things turned out differently, and that's why there's a build up in the episode. The chapter 2 does not start off with Jacqueline's story. There's other pieces to it that I kind of show, to give a little bit of a build up. And when you think about it, if you watch the beginning of the episode and listen to what I say at towards the beginning, that it involves a dream. I almost, around end of August, beginning of September, was getting close and considering walking away from the paranormal completely. And it was a dream with Jeremy and Spirit Guide Richard that essentially got me to stand back up again. Um, but when you hear the story that happened involving Jacqueline and her father, it's like the more you think about this and the more you put your pieces. Before, we were just putting pieces together of what happened those couple days. Then it started bringing it back to October. Now I'm going back to August, and I'm going, what would have happened if I did not listen uh, with whether it was actually them in the dream or not. What if I didn't listen? What if I chose to hang it up and say, I'm done? And
And we've said that exact statement about almost everything. What if we didn't take this step? Because every time something changed, there was a very good alternate option we could have gone with.
mhm,
I mean, every single time. And every time something would happen, we'd be like, what if you did this? Where would we be right now? What if it went this way? You know, the what ifs started really playing a role. Um, and it's crazy because I dial back to, I've been in paranormal for 26 years. I was in, law enforcement and private security contracting, and investigations, one way or another, have always been a part of my life. When I wanted to work on helping solve cold case murders by using the paranormal, I put my heart and soul into it. And several times throughout that process, I was ready to give up myself, because when you're dealing with such tragedy, and you're trying so hard to help, and then you hit snags and you run into issues, you feel helpless. And that's how I felt for the last almost a year at this point. I just kept running into issues and running into issues, and whether that be case related, whether that be personal life experiences, whatever it is. And then, as soon as, the Dark Echoes show came about, and my partnership with Matt and them, everything started to kind of have a more positive light. And then meeting John, and I look back now and I say the same thing as him, like, what if I was just like, forget it, I'm done. I can still keep helping do what I'm doing, but I don't need to put it out there or whatever. What if I just stopped tomorrow? And then I think about my father, and the what ifs. If any of those alternatives took place, would he be here? Would they be? What would happen? So
a-
it's certainly surreal.
and that's the thing with the circumstance that surrounds it is, um, like, so, like Jacqueline said, the I was the only one she had a 2-day event at Shawnee's, and showed up on the last day. Everybody else had canceled. I was the only one who showed up. Um, Now, if I had chosen to walk away, it means I wouldn't have been potentially at the Dark Echoes event. Um, Means I
Yeah.
would have met Jacqueline. It means I would not have been down there on November 5th,
Yep.
which means potentially she would have been down there. Um, Her uh, her partner John would be down there, and the situation would have been very different. And that's why I sit there and I think about it. Is that, um, it's tough because there's certain points of the story. There's certain things I do want to talk about with the story, but
It's hard to talk without not saying things.
I mean, it, like I said, it's saving. It ultimately involved saving a life, and it was a bunch involved, myself, who unknowingly, an action that was taken based off of direction from both spirits, um, resulted in helping Jacqueline save her father's life.
Yeah.
And I think about, had I walked away and not been there, that action wouldn't have taken place, and
Yeah.
the story could have ended very differently.
Would
Um,
have. Would have.
it's frightening to think about. It's frightening to
Yeah.
think about. It's just like, it was a simple action. Actually, it was a couple actions. There were 2 days worth of things that happened, that led up to the moment. And yeah, there's been points where I've gotten teary eyed thinking about it, going back on the story and thinking about it, in my own time, and just going, wow, you know, um, it was hard. It was hard, and thinking about, the decisions that I could have made, um, could have had a significant impact. That this wasn't just a simple, well, you're just not going to get any good apparition photos or something like that. No, this is a um, if you don't get back in or get back into this, somebody's father's going to die. And like I said, to me, when I go and think about this, like I see all the stuff. I saw how it all lined up,
Right.
and I go, but at the same time, I go, this feels like a fantasy. How is
A
this a
dream.
I've never experienced, and I'm a very anybody who's seen me on, Jeremy, 13th Dimension. We've done a bunch of work together. I'm a very scientific minded person. I'm very big into statistics. Everybody
You
loves
are
statistics
you
and
are probably the most scientific person I have ever met.
I'll take it. I forget-
But
but
but but what the thing is, being told something like that if you get out of this, someone's father is going to die. Doesn't that put a lot of weight on you?
well, see, I didn't know that that's what was going to happen. Um, but when you go back and you think about all the events that led up to it, yes, it puts a lot of weight on me. It really does, because and it makes me think about every other action. Like, and that's why it's interesting. So the one part at the very beginning, it was very. So I'm watching a show, and I'm not going to go, or well, some documentary or movie. I don't know exactly if it was a real one or not, but I make a comment or make a thought in the dream, and that's when my brother comes on. Um, my brother appears in the dream after I make the thought, and he goes, because I'm asking the question, like, how could somebody hate someone that loved everyone so much? And my brother Jeremy appears in the dream and goes, because it's easier to hate than it is to love, John.
Yes, it is.
And I'm like, whoa, holy crap! First off, hi. Um, but
Speaking of hi, we need to say hi to Lori.
Lori, Wildwood Sanitarium, Wild Lori,
Yep. Glad you could make it tonight.
love you, Lori. Um, yeah, when we think about that, um, and I see I see somebody else in the comment that I want to throw a shout out to, Alyssa Crum.
If she's still watching, that was 30 minutes ago.
Well, so a kicker for Alyssa. She actually, well, semi lived at Wildwood Sanitarium before it was taken over as the Wildwood Senate, or as the sanitarium itself, what it is now. Um, so you
Also,
had the
she has a long history of the place.
yeah, she had, well, there was a Santa and she's going to be featured. She's actually featured in the Path to Communication. She so you had the Wildwood Sanitarium that was the Sanitarium Tuberculosis Center. Then, if I'm remembering my history correctly, it became a set of apartments, and then it became. And I didn't know this part until Alyssa told me. It was purchased as a house,
Oh,
so
wow.
somebody actually lived there. And had the full place to themselves. And Alyssa used to hang out there with her
Oh,
friend that lived
wow.
there, and she was there. She always would tell me she was there more than she was at home. So Alyssa got to see what it was before it became the Paranormal Research Center, so to speak. So that was just so cool to me. Um, and yeah, she's awesome. Both, and this is funny because
You
uh,
can practically make two apartments out of that building.
yeah, well, and so the other thing is that the other Alyssa that I talked about, Alyssa Martin, they're actually best friends, and they come to a lot of the paranormal events and the different filmings that we do together. So Alyssa Martin, um, so it's funny because I'm sitting there going, oh, we got the Alyssas in the building. So so here we go again. We got the Johns, we got the Jeremys, and now we also got the Alyssas.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to start
There's
initializing.
two of everybody.
I'm just going to start putting labels on everybody.
That's
Well,
right.
for her, you can call her AC and the other one AM.
Yeah, there's two of everyone.
Yeah, I forgot where I was going with this, but hi, Alyssa. Hi, Lori.
It was your way of saying hello.
uh, yeah, like I said, the story. Alyssa
It
number
worked.
two has chimed in.
She
Um,
she must have heard you talking.
um, yeah, yeah, both. Like I said, hanging out with both of them, they're just they're both they're both amazing. They're both amazing people. Um, I again, it's the story. Um, see, she's still there. Um,
Yep.
the story, just the way it unfolds, is just I'll throw a couple things out there that are in the episode. So Spirit Guide Richard, um, uh, Spirit Guide Richard is so he passed away, obviously, um, and it really affected his daughter's life, and so it's such an emotional story. I mean, of course, that's a more private part or private story, so I'm not going to go, um, you know, into depth about what I know about all that. Um, but here's the kicker: is that both uh, Jacqueline and Spirit Guide Richard's daughter are born in the same month. They both have the same numerology number. Both their fathers' name are Richard. Um, so I mean, that's just kind of a start where I'm kind of like, huh, okay, this is already getting weird. Um, and we have a case where a father by the name of Richard, Jacqueline needs to get to her father, who isn't doing well, and we didn't, I didn't know the severity of the circumstance. I didn't know that there was a potential he could die. Um, he ended up working to get Jacqueline to her dad, and I'm literally, that's like starting point all the way to the ending point. Like there's all this stuff in between.
The meat
Um,
and potatoes.
the date that Spirit Guide Richard had passed was also the same, literally down to the year, date or day and month. Um, the same day that Spirit Guide Richard had passed was also, for Jacqueline. Um, was the day, I forgot how you worded it. Kind of almost
One of,
worded it as a baptism day or baptism type moment.
yeah, it was it was the day of my a very critical surgery in my own personal health battle that I was going through. This was the same exact day that
Yeah, I mean,
basically gave me a second lease on life in a way.
and the way that Spirit Guide Richard passed, um, uh, Jacqueline's father also ended up having that same thing. He didn't pass, but
Very close to it. Very close, but
the the same month that the same month, and I found when Jacqueline was telling me this stuff, the same month that the condition happened is the same month that Spirit Guide Richard was born. So it was just kind of like I said, it was one thing after the other, after the other, after the other, and as we are like breaking down the story and giving each other, you know, information and stuff like that, it started opening up more things that was leading us down this path of like, what the heck just happened here?
It
And
it's way too much for it to be just mere coincidences.
yeah, and that's the
I
thing.
believe in coincidences.
I only gave you the tip of the iceberg on this one.
Yeah,
And some of the stuff that I just mentioned is not in the episode, the parallels to it. So like the date of the surgery, I didn't give a parallel to that. Um, the the month of uh, uh, the father's incident in April, I didn't give the parallel to that, but that's the parallel. Um, So
The birthdays of her, myself, and my father, September, all of us.
yeah, and I I didn't even know his name was Richard. That's the crazy part, because I asked her once when I was making the episode, and she was sending me pictures of him. Um, I'm like, oh, just for so I can eventually, because I'm going to put in for like volume one once I get the credits going. What's your father's name? And then she goes, oh, my father's name is Richard. I'm like,
And the craziest thing was
Yeah.
throughout all of it, it was such an intense situation. It never once processed it because I was like going, 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 going. Like I didn't stop to think about the two at all. At all.
Well, I've always gone through life knowing, eventually you're going to run out of names, so somebody's going to have the same name somewhere.
yeah.
True story. True story. It was a whole lot in a real little amount of time. And then even after everything was said and done, and we found ourselves where we are, it made us realize like we're it this doesn't stop here. May not involve, my dad or that, but we have more work to do. There's a reason we're where we are right now.
And ultimately, I know this is, for us, this is crazy telling, telling the story, but I know because, we have this in video form. We're releasing the chapter. It's a very important story. I know that Jeremy and Spirit Guide Richard are trying to get a message. They're trying to get a message out there.
Yeah.
And uh, it's one of those things where, yes, you get those miracles and such, these different coincidences, but I've never seen so many coincidences, or I'm just going to put them in air quotes at this point. Coincidences happen
Right.
in so many ways that I cannot argue it. Because there's some points, how you'll get these what could be signs, right?
Mhm.
And then you go, oh, that's interesting. It could be that. It
Or
could
it
be
might
just,
not be.
could be nothing. Could be nothing.
But when you get 50 of them,
Yeah.
I think we're
True
probably at
story.
about that point.
Yeah. And you know what? At the end of the day, too, they're no longer coincidences or signs, they're pure evidence. It's evidence at this point. That's what that is. It's evidence. Because we're way past coincidence. We're way past could this be, what if. Now we're just documenting the evidence of holy crap, what is going on right now is real.
and um and you know this, Jeremy, that my brother Jeremy knew that I'm a very, um I like to see multiple things line up before I'll even consider.
As do I.
So it's kind of, if you don't, like, I like multiple forms of verification. Um, so if I only get like, one thing, I may walk away. Like, let's say I use the paranormal equipment, the dead bell, and I get a ring. Hey, can you ring this bell? Ding. Can you ring it twice? Nothing. Can you ring it one more time? Nothing. I might walk away going, whatever. Um, and the reason I bring that up too, it's not in the episode, but we did. That's where Jacqueline introduced me to the dead bell. Um, and I was asking if Jeremy and Spirit Guide Richard were down there at a place neither of them would have ever been. And I asked if Jeremy was there. Ding. I asked if Spirit Guide Richard was there. Ding. And I remember Jacqueline's partner John brought up saying, "Well, we got to make sure that this is actually someone that's actually conscious. That So then I went, and it's on video. I would love to get that video. Um,
I got you.
the I ask, okay, if this is truly someone who is conscious, ring the bell twice. Ding ding.
Ring it 3 times. Ding, ding, ding.
Like,
Okay, so now we're getting into mathematical equations here.
E equals MC squared. Don't ask me to solve it. No, I think it's solved. Whatever. Go ahead.
The thing that gets me more than anything else are all the intricate designs that are in that little sand pit at Wildwood. If I remember right, wasn't there like a design of a four in there?
I know so far there's been a backwards J. There was the spelling of mom. Um,
Yeah, I remember
and
that one.
yeah, and that was Jeremy's handwriting, hands down. We were able to compare. Excuse me. We were able to compare it. Um, somebody did mention a four. Maybe that was you. I don't know. It so the
I just
significant.
remember somebody said four while we were there, and we were looking at the sand pit, and I thought it was somehow there was a number four in that little sand pit.
Very well could have been. I mean, my memory slips when it comes down to that one. But just so people understand the significance of that, my brother's numerology number, life number, is four. So that's one thing I'll look for is the number four. Um, but it became when Spirit Guide Richard came into the picture, it got even more confusing because once when I learned what his date of his passing was, I was like, or not the date of his passing, excuse me, what his date of birth was. I went and I did his numerology, and it comes out to the number four, and I'm like, of course. Um, so now if I have them both there and they're both going to give me signs, well, if they're doing fours, who's speaking to me?
Okay,
Um,
now how do you figure out somebody's numerology?
so the you use the full date of birth. Um, so with mine, you'll add all together 08, 04, 1986. You add all the numbers together, and then you're going to get double digits. Combine the double digits. I come out to the number nine. Now there are people who choose to not combine those numbers, and they'll use the double digits, which, according to numerology, there's meanings to all the numbers. Um, I am, feel like when I sit back and think about how somebody went through and well, what does 474 mean and 444 and all this, and I'm like, you sat down and did all that? Wow.
Okay, I just did mine. Mine comes up to five.
Five. So there's, and it's not going to necessarily a 100% match, but if you look up the number five, it'll give you characteristics of who you of different personality traits and stuff like that. Um, and there's some differences there. Like for instance, with mine, it does kind of match. It talks about being a leader, and that's all I've done is lead things. It gives an indication that some of my career directions would be law enforcement and the security field. Well, I ended up in I was a security lieutenant, um, and this is before I knew what the number nine represented. So that was interesting. Number nines are known for being teachers. I was head of the training and intelligence division for my organization, and I always wanted to be a teacher when I was growing up. Um, so, but yeah, that's how we came down to it. And Jeremy and Spirit Guide Richard being number four was just kind of okay. So since Jeremy knows that I'm a numbers person, and I will consider if I see certain times and stuff like that, and it comes out to the number four, I would consider it depending on what happened. Um, I said we need to establish something new. So Jeremy, if it's a sign from you, try to find a way to have four and nine appear. And for Spirit Guide Richard, four and seven. Basically, the numerology number for his child. That way, I can try to distinguish. And again, it's not a guarantee just because four and seven or four and nine show up doesn't mean that that's them. There has to be something significant behind it where I go, ooh, coincidence? That's weird. Um, I'll tell you, with Jacqueline's situation, 4 and 7 were just consistent.
That's what mine is, 7.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. 7. The day that this happened, 7. So you add up the date for the entire day, comes out to the number 7. Um, 4 appeared multiple times. The time that I finished up helping Jacqueline, when I took the action that I did and left, the time comes out to 4. The military time comes out to 7. Um, that's where it was just kind of like, and then another number 4, which I'll leave for the help part of the help situation that Jacqueline got, uh, involved one of those numbers.
Yep.
It was consistent 4s and 7s that kept on appearing. And for those who watched the episode, Spirit Guide Richard, he did things with cars. So when you go to the episode and you hear about the stuff and let's just say that also was involved.
No more giving it away.
So now here's the entire story.
Sit back, folks. We got another 5 hours of this.
No, just Jack.
No, they gotta go watch.
When we filmed for Jacqueline's portion of it, I mean, her filming for the entire situation was about at least 50 minutes long. And then there was my portion that I filmed trying to speak from my end. So when
Wait, you spoke for 55 minutes?
Jacqueline did.
Yeah. I don't like speaking for 5 minutes, let alone trying to speak for 55 minutes.
You just heard that, folks. It's the end of the show right here. You've spoken way beyond your point here.
I'm still tired.
I had an hour and 3 minutes, but I think I've only spoke for maybe a minute and a half of all that time. I'd let you guys handle this thing.
Listen,
That's true story.
You don't need to speak because you have this gorgeous beard, and the beard is just.
He has been jealous of my beard for the last 5 or 6 years now.
My face is like the face of a 10-year-old. It cannot grow a beard. Like, it'll just be these little hairs. It'll just be like, wow.
Go invest in a chia pet.
What? Take the chia pet.
Get the chia pet. Just kind of lather that stuff there and let it grow in 5 days.
You saying hello? You saying hello?
I don't even think I would look good with a beard anyway. But yeah, I mean, the beard is it's an authority type figure. Like, anything that you say, like 2 + 2 is 5. I'm gonna be like, yes, sir, it is.
Okay, we'll go with that. You have completely forgotten where you were at, didn't you?
Yes, but now I remember. Yeah, no, we if you think about it, it's a 28-minute episode, like you mentioned. You had my filming, you had for her portion, you had her filming, which about 50 minutes long, and in the episode, technically, her portion is about 16, 17 minutes long.
Wow, that's a good chunk.
It's a good chunk, and you think about like all the cutting out. Like, there were things in there that I wanted to put in there, and I was just like, this is already going on way too long. So there were points of things where I did take things out, and really
You said earlier that you weren't going to let time restraints affect the length of the show. That it was going to.
Ooh, he got you.
Well, the other portion of that is that it was more of, I focused more on the standouts, because there is a point where, like, I could put all the stuff in. The problem is that also I have to consider audience retention, can I tell the story with all this stuff without, you know, um, without it just being. And this was a hard one because it's not like you know, if I had more time at the time, like, and we're gonna film something else, but Shawnee's for me is 11 hours away. Um, Jacqueline is not in my state, and so there was just
Where is this lake at?
West
Lake
Virginia.
Shawnee is in West Virginia. It is an abandoned haunted amusement park that is actually built on top of a Native American burial ground.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
That
think
is my home away from home.
didn't you say there was like 3,000 deaths? Do I have
It's
the number
over
right?
3,000 bodies on the property.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I need to ask you this. Have you ever thought about testing out a death whistle out there?
I would love to.
Because I do have a death whistle. Uh,
Send it and I will take it on live.
oh, I ain't sending it. If it's going to be used,
Oh,
I'm going to be with it.
Jared's gonna take it down there. We
So
did.
we host 5 big events a year, but we go down regularly in between those events. I encourage you to join us for our next event. It is an incredible location. We usually do 2 days at a time. We camp out there, food, have a great time. But we get the property to ourselves for the 24-hour. Each day is 24 hours straight. So for 2 days, it's ours for 2 days straight. And it
Lake
is
Charles,
never,
West Virginia.
yep, it is never a dull moment.
So here's another. Uh, so yeah, the other. Um,
Oh, John, I got you beat. It's only a 6.5 hour drive for me. Me.
yeah, shut up.
Yeah, mine's 6.5 hours too.
Uh, what you call it? Yeah, the story aspect of it. It was kind of more of the. There were the big things that we put front and center. Um, one of them. Uh, One of them that I did not leave in the story was the 444 number. Um, I filmed that part and I ended up cutting it. Um, so 444 in numerology can represent. Funny how they're fours. Is that there could be a point where you save somebody or somebody saves you, and I haven't fully in the path to communication introduced that concept. So I felt like it was another area of introduction where it was like, well, okay, it's going to be a side mention as opposed to something major. Um, so what ended up happening was is I went down. I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts and I was getting my refresher drink, and so the same refresher drink up here at my Dunkin' Donuts is $4.21. It's sad that I have that memorized. Um, uh, and when I got my refresher drink there, um, they here's the kicker: it's the way the person said it. So I was at the drive-through, and I wanted my refresher, and they said, "Okay, your total is 444." And I stopped, and I was like, uh, "What?"
Why
They're
did
like,
you say it that way?
"Yeah, exactly that." And they were like, your oh, so your total is 444." I'm sitting there going, "Why did they say 444 at the beginning?" I'm like, "Okay, whatever." Um, I
One
drove.
less syllable to say.
It was a very weird way of saying it.
Yeah.
So they said you can pull around. I pulled around, and they were like, "Oh, do you want your receipt?" And I'm like, "Yes." Um, so I took it,
Please do.
and I did take a picture of it. Um, that's when I was partway down to West Virginia. So, and I remembered what 444 represented. The thing is that it didn't mean much to me because I'm like, oh, I'm going down to West Virginia. We're going to a fun paranormal event. Uh, you know, Jacqueline wanted to do the Project Apparition Hall experiment, so we were doing that. We were going to do that, and I'm like, yeah, well, 444. Somebody's watching over me. It's probably my brother.
Now, having mentioned Apparition Hall, is there going to be a correlation between that and Path Communications?
Yes, so we do have the documentary called Project Apparition Hall, um, that's releasing on January 3rd of next year, and it's going to have basically what you're seeing things from the path of communication is going to appear in there, but it's going to focus primarily on just that. Um, because we want to go in depth about the history of this experiment. So rather than going through different episodes of the path to communication, which is focusing on us reaching out in many different aspects, understanding the physics of spiritual activity and bridging the gap between both sides, Project Apparition Hall focuses on the documentary, just focuses on that experiment. It's not focusing on bridging the gap. It's focusing on what's the science behind this, what are the results, how did it evolve, how did this come into fruition. Um, and we're going to do that with other things. So other things that happen in the path to communication where we get some major results, we start getting like a breakthrough or something like that. It's going to start. We're going to look at another documentary that goes towards that specific hypothesis or experiment or what have you. We'll start forming it, and so that's how all those are going to form. So Project Apparition Hall um, became big. Um, we had the Jeremy photo, which happened back in 2022. Um, but then it really took off in August of this year. Um,
Mm.
and the results were absolutely insane. And we even got a crazy result from Shawnee. Uh, uh, so we caught a picture of the face of one of the Native American chiefs,
Right.
and we were actually able to take the photo that Jacqueline had of one of the chiefs and compare and show it's the same person.
Yep. And it is so on like the money.
It, I mean, the experiment has taken on a life of its own. It really has.
Yep.
Now, I just found something interesting here for me. Um, I did a Google map for from Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is where I'm from, all the way
Oh, okay.
to Lake Shawnee, and the path takes me directly through Point Pleasant. So if I want,
Oh, good old Point Pleasant.
yeah, I could always take a little side trip there and visit the Mothman locations.
There you go. I have to be honest, I was a little disappointed when I went. I, I thought I'd get a little more out of it, so I felt a little let down, but it
Did
is a very cool little town.
did you go just on a random day, or did you go when they had their little Mothman festival thing that they?
I went the week after, and I only went because I was at Shawnee for 3 days, and I said, you know what, let's spend an extra night in West Virginia, and we could stop here.
Now, why is Lake Shawnee listed as abandoned?
Because so the story is the original property was the Shawnee tribe land. Um, Mitchell Clay came over from England. They were the first English settlers in Mercer County. They purchased a piece of the Shawnee tribe property, and said to the tribe, we'll stay in our little corner. That's all we want from you, whatnot. Long story short, I won't give away too much because I know that the owner likes to share the story on the tours. But long story short, Mitchell Clay's children were massacred by some of the Indian tribe.
I'm
And
actually looking at the monument right now,
yeah,
1783.
correct. So now, after all of this happened, fast forward to 1926, descendants of Mitchell Clay, Conley Snido, opened up the amusement park on the property, not knowing it was a burial ground, apparently. Long story short, some very mysterious deaths in children occurred on that property. and then it closed down in 1982 or 84, and it has been the actual amusement park has been abandoned since. Now, the owners of that property, again, descendants of the original family, were going to try to resurrect it and do like mud bog races and this or that. When they broke ground to dig is when they found the bodies. Marshall University came in and said, "Stop! This is hallowed ground. Like this is sacred ground. You can't dig here. Preserve it." And so now the owners of the property do the investigations and also do the tour and tell the story of the whole property, start to finish.
Okay, so
So
that
there are still rides there that are abandoned and that sort of thing.
that makes sense. And yeah, I was able to see a shadow of a Ferris wheel from the aerial pictures.
Yeah, it's an incredible, incredible place. Incredible.
Hello, Chris. Very, very interesting. I've always now. What is it that is actually the haunting? Is it because of the Indian burial ground, or do people think that they have been communicating with the children?
Both,
Both.
all of it, all of the above. I have communicated with Shawnee tribe members. I've communicated with the chief of the tribe. I've communicated with one of Mitchell Clay's children. I've communicated with several of the kids that died during the amusement park accidents. And I've also communicated with other victims on that property that weren't part of the tribe or the amusement park, but died on the property. That has such a rich history. It it would take me hours to go through it all, but it is an incredible location. I invite you to come out to one of our overnight weekend lockdowns. You will have a blast. We have food, we camp out, we have a good time, and of course, nonstop investigating. So what's better than that?
Yeah, I'm seeing buildings here, but I they don't have any spots where I can get right in front of the building to see what they are. But I can't tell. It's too blurry. I can't tell if they are like utility buildings that are connected to the amusement park and lake, or if anybody actually lives there.
So the park and the burial grounds are dead center at the base of a mountain. On the outskirts of the mountain, there are homes and stuff and some trailers. But the property itself, on that property, there is a pavilion. There are some um, ticket booths, and there are some old like RV type trailers from when it was like the Carney days. But that's all that's on the property as far as buildings go.
Okay, and right next to that property is a trailer park.
Yes, correct. So the actual property itself doesn't really have build. There are two buildings that were ticket booths, but not buildings. They're more like ticket booths.
Okay, very interesting.
Yeah, it's an amazing place.
I like it. If I can um, figure out a way to go, I would.
Yeah,
All right,
you have to see it lit up at night.
amazing.
So what's lit up?
Oh, the Ferris wheel has some very creepy light. Well, let me rephrase that. Most of the park is pitch black, but the ticket booths and the Ferris wheel have creepy neon lights still in the pitch black darkness. So when you're looking out, it's just creepy.
I can handle that.
Yeah, it's a great time. We have an event coming up in February. We have another one in April,
That's true.
another one in June, August area. We have our November one every year.
If I could share my screen real quick,
Yeah.
um, this is a picture of the Ferris wheel lit up,
Okay.
and there's like a water body of water that's that's right across from it, and it just you could see all of the stuff like the different rides and stuff like that. They have these lightings. You could see a little bit of the lighting in the background too. but it does, this picture doesn't no justice. But
Well, the angle of the picture and the colors, it makes it look like the Ferris wheel is underwater, like it's inside of a giant fish tank.
It's something else. You got to see it in person. I could share some photos with you. You know, when I hop off and can access my pictures, and I've got some incredible stuff that I could share. It's beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, so I've noticed here chapter two has been released yesterday.
hmm
Chapter one was released 2 weeks ago.
hmm
So are you setting the pace by doing an episode every 2 weeks, or are how are you doing this?
the it's basically going to be just when they're ready. Um, it's going to depend on what the story is. So chapter three, it may be within the next couple weeks or so. Um, but it's also going to depend on where the story goes from there. Um, if the story requires us to travel, then we're going to have to travel first. But what we're doing with each episode is when the episode is getting ready for a release, we have a preview per chapter. Um, so it'll kind of give everybody the heads up of what's coming up next, and we'll have the date of when that chapter's coming. But that's going to be released when we know the chapter's coming.
So basically, like what you did 2 weeks ago when you put out a almost a 4 minute preview for chapter two.
Yes, and we did that for chapter one. Had was called New Emotional Series or something like that for the
Yep.
that was for chapter one.
Yeah, I
Uh,
actually remember watching that one.
yep.
Mhm.
Um, and then if you notice so far, chapter three has not been announced yet. Um, chap Once see a target date and have an idea of once I see it forming, because that's in post production right now. I'm working on that right now. It could be within the next week or so that you'll see a chapter three preview come out,
Yeah,
Woo woo! Chapter three.
and that will be essentially the end of the introduction period.
that's a long introduction.
What lies in wait?
This one was there is no easy way of introducing this. I mean, we had the prologue, which was only a few minutes long, just to kind of introduce what volume one is. Chapter one, which was about 12 minutes 38 seconds, I think. This new one, which is 28 minutes and 40 something seconds. Um, and now we're introducing the final aspects of this. Um, that really brings the picture in. So now we're bringing in fully Katie Peak, um, and her portion of the story, and Dr. Henderson and Nurse Sue, and then combining it to make the spiritual science team. And then from there, since we've done a catch up, we're essentially catching everybody up to where we are.
All this talk about coincidences, um, I would
I,
it would be stupid on my part if I didn't tell you about all the coincidence on my end.
I've got a pen and paper ready. Go for it.
It has everything to do with my accident
Mhm.
and the accident that killed my dad's father.
Hmm.
Um, we were both 41 when it happened.
Jeez.
The accident happened on the left side of my face. The accident happened on the right side of his face.
Was it the same type of accident?
No, his was vehicular. Um, Telephone pole crushed him.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Mhm.
sorry.
So my dad was only 15 when it happened. So I never got to meet him. But it's just kind of really weird that we were both 41 when it happened. I got the left side. He got the right side. My accident happened on December 16th. His on December 22nd. So within a week of each other.
Yeah.
That's pretty close.
Yeah.
Um, so just those three alone makes me think that there's kind of something there.
Well, that's why everybody should go check out that check out chapter 1, because it starts with leading, like how my brother was leading us, and it gives a hint of what chapter 2 is. Then see how chapter 2 is another form of leading.
Dun, dun,
Um,
dun.
uh, and just wait until you see how
She's
chapter 3
especially
brings it.
excited about it because she's in this episode.
No, I'm excited about the whole thing. But just the beginning. Just the beginning, my friend.
It's wild. Like there's I can't put into words how wild and crazy this story is. It just, like I said, it feels like something out of a movie. And like I said, Alyssa describes it best, saying, "Is this real life?" Because Alyssa Martin, she did have something happen to her too. Um, and that's why the episode for chapter 2 is called "It's Been Foreseen," um, because uh, and again, I being the science person, this is just, it sounds so weird to even say this. This is not something you would have, if I were to tell myself a couple of years ago, "Hey John, you're going to be telling these stories," um, I wouldn't believe it, because they're so out there.
That's the beauty of it because it's taking you out of your comfort zone,
Oh, it definitely is. um,
and that's what we need.
I
That's what everybody needs.
it, indirectly, I've essentially, not myself, but the information, getting the information that I've been getting, I've essentially been almost predicting some of future events. Not exactly. Like, I didn't predict, exactly what was going to happen to Jacqueline, like what happened. I didn't know why. I just knew I was told something's going to happen. Here's what you need to do. Do it. Um, for Alyssa, the same thing happened. For another circumstance, for someone else, the same thing happened. Um, for a case when it came down to Project Apparition Hall, same thing happened. And I actually have text messages to back that one up, sort of, where I send a message to Katie going, "I feel like something's going to happen." And
So, in
then
other words, if you come to me saying something, I better listen to you.
if I tell you that Jeremy and Spirit Guide Richard have said
A
something,
message.
um, I'll go with what I told Jacqueline. Trust the process.
Amen.
I remember you telling me that. Well, not directly telling me, but using that phrase before.
Um, yeah, it's something I said a few times to Jacqueline that day. Um, and it's something that Spirit Guide Richard, I heard him say. Like, when I say here, I'm not here. It wasn't even audible. It was kind of like in here, hearing, trust the process. And I'm like, so when I heard that, I went to Jacqueline, took the actions I was supposed to, and I kept on telling her, trust the process. You need to trust the process.
Okay, I gotta ask. Did he also use the phrase "facts don't care about your feelings" to you?
Uh,
No.
no, that's me. Well, actually, I say facts don't care about your feelings or beliefs.
Yeah, that to me that's really one of my favorite phrases because it is
That
so
is pretty
true.
clever.
Well, it's actually the first part of the phrase. I have to give credit to where credit's due, is from Ben Shapiro. Um, he says facts don't care about your feelings. That's his
That's
argument to
right.
a lot of things. I added and your beliefs. Um, so, but the
Which
first
is
half of it's not
also
mine.
true.
Well, I say it for more of scientific purposes. Facts don't care about your feelings or your beliefs. Because when it comes down to science, science is it doesn't care about any of that. It doesn't. Facts are the
Gives you
facts are the
the
facts.
answer.
That's it.
Yeah, it just gives you the answer.
Yeah.
That's
Whether
right.
you like it or not is not his problem.
But yeah, I really challenge everybody. Go check out. If you haven't seen chapter one, check out chapter one of the Path to Communication, um, and really check out the story with Jacqueline in chapter two. Wait until you see how this starts coming together in chapter three. Uh, but the chapter two, that story alone, it, I'm speechless by the end, and it's hard to make me speechless when it comes down to this stuff.
Amen.
I am once again putting the link into the chat, and it looks like it is going everywhere. One, two,
Yeah, I see a
three,
bunch.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It went everywhere except for my profile. It
Fine, I take
was
great offense to
hard
this.
for the course. Uh,
Yeah,
all
Good
right.
stuff.
yeah, just and I know for a fact that with my other team members as well as Jacqueline, um, there's definitely more to come. Um, there's definitely more to come, and I can't wait to see what this adventure takes us on. But it's just as more information comes out, uh, people's minds are just going to be. It's like, you know, like you said, how do you take all this coincidence or coincidence after coincidence after coincidence and argue coincidence? Even for me, with the analytical mind that I have, uh, this is beyond a level that I've ever seen. Um, and so when they watch chapter two, it's going to be very different. It's a very different story. It's not a story I've ever told. Um, and in chapter three, you're going to see additional stuff that happened prior to it that I put a timeline together. Um, and you start seeing all this stuff happen, and you're kind of like, can they see? That's where I go, time. Can they see the future? It's like, how did you know that I needed to do X, Y, and Z for this moment? How did you know this was going to happen? How did you know this was going to how is this a thing? So that's why there's the whole episode of It's Been Foreseen, because when I asked a question about myself, am I going to have the ability to crack the code or something with the paranormal? I forgot what my phrasing was. Over the spirit box, I got an answer saying it's been foreseen.
Didn't you and I have a conversation one time that the spirit world may not be linear?
We've had that conversation, yeah. Yeah.
I thought we did. Because it's starting to sound familiar on that. Because I remember you, me, and Katie, I think, or no, you, me, and Loy. It was one of the two. Um, we were up there at the crystal ball table on the second floor, Wildwood,
Seance room, yep.
and seance room, and yeah, something slipped my mind. I can't even think of certain words anymore. But we were talking, and we were having this extremely deep conversation about all of this stuff.
Hmm.
To the point where I was shaking my head, you were shaking your head, like, could this even be possible? And I think the linear aspect was one of them.
Oh, there's some time questions
Mind
I'm going to be
boggling.
asking. Yeah, there's some time questions I'm going to be asking because uh, everything that's happened from April until now, especially with the November incident, um, I've got questions. I want answers.
Now, how many chapters are you looking at having for each volumes?
No set number. It's when we feel that the chapter or the volume is set to be closed. When we see that there's actually an end to the story, the specific story. Then we'll determine volume two where that goes to next. But that's the beauty of this path. We're starting to walk down it. Um, we don't know where it's going to take us, and that's why this show's not linear. It's not of original format. It's the story. It's the path, and where that path takes us, well,
Don't know.
we don't know yet.
Hop on the train and see where it goes.
Watch it evolve.
All right. Well, I am definitely gonna try to at least get that first chapter watch this weekend because you know me, I have an extremely so I would definitely try to at least watch the first one this weekend.
Your beard says so, so I believe it.
Yeah, don't trust me. It's the beard talking.
It's hypnotic.
I I can see it now. Arrested under the influence of beard. Okay, so before we wrap up this episode, any last words either one of you guys want to say?
Trust the process. I
I
I
don't
will
think
say thank you for
that.
inviting me. Thank you for having me here.
Oh,
I'm very excited to see where um, this road takes us as well. John and I have a lot of work to do, and I'm excited to see all the different avenues that we go because of where we are now. So keep your eyes out.
I think what I would like to do is probably have you come back and just talk about that lake, uh,
Yeah,
the
heck
lake,
yeah,
the burial, all of that stuff.
sure.
Yeah, so definitely like to try to get you on back for that, and then John will maybe get you back on right around when chapter 3 comes
I'm
on.
good with it.
Nice, nice.
And yeah, I mean, like Jacqueline said, uh, that's going to be a big phrase now is trust the process. Um, definitely again check out the Path to Communication on YouTube, um, and I hope that it inspires people. Um,
Trust the process and keep the path.
and keep the path. Yes,
There you
that's
go.
Of
I
course,
love it.
there's still work left to be done on that one, though.
yes, definitely.
um, okay, so let everybody know where they can find you guys. They've already got the link to YouTube.
Yeah, we're also on Facebook, the Path to Communication, or um, we'll post information about there. Of course, you can reach out to me on my social media. There's also the UINI Research page, UINI Research, the Paranormal Puzzle page, and of course the YouTube page that you've posted a million times automatically, the Path to Communication for YouTube. Um, yeah,
Wow, there was a lot of enthusiasm behind that.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. And you can also find me on my personal Facebook page under Jacqueline Loren. I have a Facebook group, Forsaken Souls Paranormal Research Group. We have our TikTok and Instagram, which are both Forsaken Souls underscore PRG. And also just started a YouTube again at Forsaken Souls underscore PRG. Um, and then keep an eye out for our Dark Echoes as well. John and I have a whole nother path going on with that as well. So stay tuned. So much to come.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen out there, thank you so much for playing along. This has been a fun episode. The next episode of 13th Dimension to be determined because I don't have anything
Trust the process.
yeah, trust the process. Um, so, so for the 13th dimension, I don't know when I will have the next guest come on. It's just kind of with the holiday season around it, everybody is so incredibly busy. So I may not even try to start anything until after the first of the year. Well, depending on when chapter 3 comes out. So, okay. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this episode. John, Jacqueline, thank you for
Thank
being
you.
been a lot of fun. And we will see you guys next time. You guys have a good night and have a good weekend.
Stay safe.